Snaps good, holds good, kick on the way by Conradi, end over end, and it is good! Kyle Conradi hit a 54-yard field goal, and Iowa State leads it 20-19! Oh my goodness!
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Iowa State Perspective. As always, brought to you by us here at Play the Fight Song College Football Show. My name is Jake. As always, I am joined by my co-host, my brother, Justin. Each and every single week, we give you guys coverage of the Cyclones. A wise man once told me, Justin, that a win is a win, and you will take any win whenever you can get it, because sometimes people forget how hard winning is in college football. The Big 12 continues to do Big 12 things. We're in the middle of November, and we have no idea what Dallas could look like in 3 weeks for the Big 12 title race. And I think that's the exciting part, because you still have a shot. Justin, how are we doing tonight? We were both in Jack Trice Stadium yesterday, seeing the Iowa State win. Ready to talk this one over?
Yeah, we're doing a lot better than we were last week. I wasn't sure that an Iowa State fan could ever take winning for granted, but damn, did winning yesterday feel good.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And that's why we are the fan perspective, because we see it from every angle and every side of this loyal fan base. Justin, I'm glad to see that you're doing well. I know we had some people reach out to you that they were concerned with where you were at mentally last week after going down to Kansas City and absolutely just getting debacled by the Jayhawks.
I got multiple calls from my buddy Cole, who was down in Nashville for the weekend, and he was telling me that the Cyclones are back. He said we looked good on TV, and he just wanted to check in on me. So glad that the fan base is starting to come around a little bit.
Yep, that's college football, whether you're Georgia, whether you're an Alabama fan, or whether you're just a little old Iowa State football fan. Losing streaks suck. Losing sucks. And when you've tasted a little bit of winning like we have, that we are very fortunate to witness in the Matt Campbell era, you do take winning for granted. I think you just said it perfectly, Justin. And I think when you lose a couple in a row, people tend to think that it's the end of the world. And I'm here to tell you it's not, because we'll get into all of that. Obviously, we're going to break down the Cincinnati game and preview the Utah game, but that's a fan base that I think they think the world's coming to an end right now, and I don't necessarily blame them. We will get into them, but we do want to talk about Cincinnati. So let's just dive into it, Justin. We both had a chance to be there yesterday. A lot of fun, awesome night game. I, for one, do not get sick of night games, but I always don't have the chance to make every single home game, so maybe I can't say too much, but Iowa State gets it done in the black uniforms, winning 34-17 Saturday night. They won the second half 24-7 after going into halftime, tied at 10-10. Iowa State, fun fact for Justin, did not punt in the second half. They either got a touchdown, field goal, or that Carson Hansen fumble in the second half. So Iowa State offense continuing to click, but I think the big thing for Justin, who you got back health-wise on defense, some awesome faces we saw once again playing for the Cyclones, and I think just that defense and the strides they've made and the adjustments that they've made in just the last week.
Yeah, it was good to see the cardiac clones kind of step up in the second half like they have been earlier in the season. But damn, I really wish that this team would. 10 games in, you kind of are who you are, but could we please get a little bit better starts?
Yep. Good point in saying that. I did have that in my notes. Iowa State gives up another opening touchdown on defense, which, I don't know. It kind of is what it is at this point. We really can't ask for too much more going into the end of November, because that's just what Coach John Haycock does. He makes adjustments. And also, I think the defense got better due to the fact that you had some guys getting back into things. Let's just name them. Dom Orange comes back. Malik Verdone comes back. Will McLaughlin. We get a Will McLaughlin sighting back in the linebacker room. That is just awesome to see after he went through a couple of, I think, back surgeries I listened to. And he played pretty well. So that's my point. I think I'm giving him a little bit more leeway, just because you had some guys step in, and the first drive was, again, first couple drives, little rough, but they continue to get better. They got stronger, and the guys who have been so pivotal for this defense when they're healthy stepped up and made huge plays on Saturday night.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like we talked about, you're not going to complain about a win. And this team did start to show some signs of the good football that they were playing earlier in the season and good signs of things to come. But I still feel like, as a whole, it just kind of felt like a sloppy game to me. I don't know. What do you think?
I definitely thought it was sloppy. And I didn't feel comfortable. I would say I didn't feel comfortable pretty much up until the Rocco improv third down touchdown when the snap went over his head. And
Yeah.
they
Which
went
we
up
were up
20.
2 scores with 4 minutes left at that point, was it?
Correct. 27-17. Yeah, that just, I don't know. It wasn't the most perfect game. The running game was very iffy at times. I don't think it was all bad. I thought there were some good runs out of Rocco, Abu, Aiden Flora, the kid from ADM gets in the football game. So
Did
there
not
were
expect us to
pieces.
bring in another running back, that's for sure.
No, and so there were pieces in the run game that I thought were good, but all in all, it's not the biggest game that they had. But I don't know. It's hard to come on here and ask for perfection because we talked about it on our Play the Fight Song live weekly college football show on Wednesday nights. If you guys want to check that out on our channel, it's just this year in college football in 2024. If you watch the entire landscape, nothing's perfect. It's not even close. Oregon goes on the road and wins 16-13 last night. That was going on during the Iowa State game. Obviously, the SEC teams just keep beating each other one after the other. We could get into that conversation later, but there's just not a team right now in college football that plays even remotely perfect football. And Iowa State does it better than anybody else, I think, in winning ugly, but also winning playing their own brand of clean style football. Like one turnover last night. I don't remember a ton of penalties that came to the top of my mind. And that
No,
was the first
definitely
time
better than the
just
last couple of games.
that the game wasn't perfect, but that right there, turnovers and penalties was something that was the cleanest game we've played in 3 weeks, don't you think?
Yeah, and that's what we've been talking about. With the way that this team wants to play football, you've got to limit the turnovers and penalties. I know we've been harping on, or at least I have, been kind of hoping for more passing on offense and kind of moving a little away from the run game just because it's been lacking success. And by the way, we just keep getting gashed with our run defense. You kind of need to
Yep.
play a more explosive style of football, I feel like, but it's just not really how this Iowa State team is built. And if that's going to be the way you're going to play, you cannot be turning the ball over and making those mental mistakes, which credit to them, they did last night.
And another thing, defensively, Iowa State holds Cincinnati and Brendan Sorsby to 66 passing yards. And I would like to see, I think 30 of those came in the first possession. Honestly, like from going back and rewatching the highlights, that's really what it felt like to me. So that was really good to see. Now we understood it, and Matt Campbell said it in his press conference. Guys, you got to understand, if you watched Kansas last night, that's a team who's really, really good and is getting better each and every single week. And they have 6-year dudes on there, like Daniels and the receivers and the running backs. We finally, it felt like we finally ran into an offense, Justin, that didn't have an elite playmaker, either at quarterback, running back, at receiver, that we have finally not seen in the last few weeks. And I think that's just what the defense needed.
Yeah, which I think we kind of took I think we took that for granted too. Kind of the teams we were playing earlier in the year. These last couple of games that we've been playing have had some really good offenses that kind of exposed us a little bit. And it's just, I'm not so sure we are ready for it. And I mean, yeah, it was nice to get a Cincinnati team that didn't really take advantage of us like that. But I mean, they still had like 260 rushing yards or something crazy like that. And if we do have aspirations of winning post the regular season, I mean, that's still something like they got to get it figured out, or they got to minimize it at least somewhat.
Yep. The inability to give up explosive run plays is something Iowa State's still struggling. They rushed for 287 yards in Cincinnati. Sorsby had 124 yards, I believe. I saw Corey Kiner had 100. The option really killed us. You haven't seen that in a couple. I mean, you might see that more with some of these running quarterbacks. You saw it with Daniels last week a little bit. Then you saw it with Sorsby, and they really took full advantage of it. So that being said, the run game and the big explosive plays there was interesting. I was actually more concerned. I thought the offensive coordinator for Cincinnati got too honed in on wanting to run the football and some of that option stuff. I At least
It
from
was
what I
working
thought,
though, and against this Iowa State defense, I don't feel like you can fault them.
it was working, but I feel like that made the pass more vulnerable against some of these younger guys. And I just thought they didn't execute well enough in the passing game. Like Kansas was both, right? Like we couldn't get Devin Neal off the field. Daniels was running all over. And then just when you think they're going to hit a big explosive pass play, Daniels and Sorsby both threw for, I think, 18 or 20 passes these last 2 weeks. But the difference with Daniels, they were getting like 20 yards of pass completion last week. They were killing us. And that's something Sorsby didn't do last night.
And I think the biggest thing that contributed to that was Daniels had all of the time in the world. And last night, big number 95 did not let that happen.
He did.
I think he even played better last night than he did against Iowa. I think that was definitely the best we've seen an interior D lineman play for Iowa State in the past couple of years.
Great call. I completely agree. I was going to say it's his best game at least since Iowa, but I can see where you're coming from, where that's his best game in Big 12 play.
That was huge for us. That pressure he was getting on the pass was so big because, like you said, in that first quarter where they were getting their pass plays, they were all really long developing plays. And as good as our secondary is, I mean, they can only cover for so long. And we're not even asking. Like, I don't know off the top of my head if he got any sacks, but just providing that pressure is so needed.
Yep. I know he got one or two for sure. And then, of course, Justin, why wouldn't this season go the way it is J.R. Singleton was in street clothes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Campbell had zero comment in his press conference about it. I don't know if he just actually knew nothing or if it's just coach speak and he's just trying to deflect it. We'll obviously find out maybe a little more on Tuesday, but you can never really. Yeah, you can.
I mean, we'll find out if they think he's going to play or not. But if they say he's not playing, we don't know how long he's going to be out or what the issue is.
Exactly. And going back to, we talked about giving up some of the explosive plays. I listened to Malik Verdon's post game yesterday and some of his comments, and he's like, the guys were like, what's the biggest difference between this week and last week? And he's just like, communication. And obviously Malik went out early in that game last week. He's one of the bigger leaders of this group. Communicating is obviously huge. He helps out Bo Freiler and some of those corners too. So I do believe that it is honestly just in that defense, when you drop back so many guys and you're playing zones, it is communication and just being in the right spot. And you can tell they lacked that when Malik went out last week, and they lacked that veteran leadership. So a couple of things to note there. And I'm glad Coop, Bo, all the secondary got through at least what it seemed like yesterday, fully healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But Malik still got that cast on his hand. But I mean, it's better than the other option at this point, no offense to any of the backups, but all right. It seems like this group is getting a little healthier. I think that's one of the bigger takeaways you can at least take away from this one as a good thing heading into Utah next week. But there are some new guys I kind of wanted to highlight too. Like Gabe Burkle. I guess he's not new. He's been around obviously, but I thought he had his best game as a Cyclone. Awesome in the passing game. I think he had 8 catches, was the leading receiver.
Yep.
We already mentioned Aiden Flora, the running back, who got a couple of carries. Connor Moberly got a couple of snaps yesterday. Interesting. I mean, it is what it is. I
really know what they were trying to do there.
Just, I guess, what do you think? They're just trying new things because of bodies? Like they're just trying to mix things up? Or what do you think? I don't know.
Maybe Rocco's more like our boy Anthony Richardson than we expect. He was just a little tired. I don't know. I don't know. Because I mean, how many plays did Moberly play? I just remember the one
like
where he
2 or 3.
Yeah, he came in, and I'm like, okay, so this probably is not going to be a pass. And then we just tried to run it straight up the gut, and it got stuffed. I was like, okay, I don't really.
He's bigger than I thought he was, though. Like I can see what they're trying to do. But Steve-O, again, fake punt, gets a touchdown. Awesome there.
Yeah.
And then I want to get the name right because first time I'm hearing it this year. Brett Eskildsen. I feel like I murdered that. I apologize, Brett. I will learn your name eventually, and if you keep making big catches, we'll learn the name. 81, wide receiver, true freshman from the state of Texas. I mean, they weren't monumental plays, but 2 big third down catches for the kid who hasn't played all year. And in a receiver, that's got to be like the 7th or 8th receiver we've seen this year. That was going to be my question, Justin. What do you, how many of the roster? I mean, Iowa State's probably put 80 different guys in a game this year. Am
It's been a
I
lot.
off in saying that?
It's been a lot, and it's been hard to follow, especially with me being at so many games, because it's hard to tell when you're in person who's out there sometimes. Especially we had really good seats this weekend, so I was pretty close to the field. It's a little overwhelming trying to decide who's who out there.
This is what the last thing I'll say, maybe on this game, if you have any more touches,
Yeah,
and then I want to get in.
after you.
Well, I want to do the biggest plays of the game, but then I'll
Yep.
get your thoughts as well. The offensive struggles yesterday, I think we highlighted, Justin, like, who's the defensive coordinator for Cincinnati? It's Tyson Veit. Old Iowa State coach, was around for 8 years. What does John Haycock do? He doesn't give up big plays. He makes you move the ball down the field, and that's what he forced Iowa State to do last night. And I think that's encouraging. I think it's encouraging that Iowa State, especially in the second half, sustained drives and was able to stay on the field and won a game.
Third downs in the fourth quarter, especially.
Exactly. And you scored 34 points with really out hitting a big play. Like, I think the biggest play that comes to mind is maybe the Klotz touchdown was like a 20-yard pass, I think.
That was pretty big, especially early on, even it up there. And it wasn't as big of a stat game from Jalen Nolan Higgins like we're expecting, but I thought those guys were making a lot of tough catches yesterday, particularly across the middle.
Higgins did too. Yes, very much so. I thought he was monumental. I mean, like you said, he didn't have his big 40-yard touchdown catch or one-on-one jump ball, but like just nails. Every single time you needed him, he was nails. And I thought that was huge. What other thoughts do you have before we move into the plays of the game for me?
Yeah, kind of touching on some of those tough catches too across the middle. I know it's something I've touched on with our lack of run game, and especially once Bramer went out, I was talking about how vulnerable Iowa State is on offense across the middle of the field. And it's something that you need to space out the field and run a complementary offense. And I just wanted to highlight the tight ends and how good those guys did yesterday. With Steve-O and Burkle. Like, to have those two step up, Burkle to lead us in receiving, Steve-O to get into the end zone. I know they're not guys that we typically throw to. At least we've tried with Burkle, but this was kind of his breakout game. They don't typically throw to Steve-O. But to see those guys like step up and help our offense just add another layer was just so big for the team. And if that's something they can continue to do, even if we're not having a lot of success running the ball, I think this team is talented enough to still have success.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. And that being said, biggest plays of the game for me, Justin, I thought, number one, the Rocco improv on third down, just being able to make a play when all chaos ensues and you just turn 6 out of it on a big third down was huge.
It scared the shit out of me.
Yep. You guys, that was right in your field of vision. So I'm sure I definitely see that. And then I thought this one, if you're watching us on the YouTube, the Sorsby fumble, the one turnover you got, Sorsby was running the ball. They were moving down the field all game. I think this would have been to tie it up at 17-17 had Cincinnati scored. Iowa State gets the fumble. That then turns into the possession with
a field goal, and it was 20-10.
The Steve-O fake punt, and they got a field goal to go up 20-10. I didn't feel comfortable about it, but that was one of the more times I felt comfortable with where Iowa State was sitting, and I thought the momentum completely turned away in Iowa State's favor. So those were the two biggest plays to me, unless you have another one.
Do you want to talk about the Steve-O fake punt?
Yeah,
that came out of nowhere, and what a huge play! Because if we go off of that turnover, that Sorsby turnover, and get no points out of it,
and just punt,
or if that gets stuffed right there, and they've got the ball at the 50, I mean, I feel like that absolutely changes the game.
I think Iowa State needed it, and Campbell said again in his press conference that they have been working on it. And you go to last week, there was no time to use it. I don't think at any point. And honestly, you go back to the Texas Tech game, didn't really feel like there was a point in that game where you felt like you could have used it. it was just like, that's like why coaches get paid because that felt like the perfect time to use it, because everybody's, fists in the fan base is like this right now. Like everybody's really tight, and it's really nerve wracking in that game yesterday. You're still winning, not necessarily going things your way. You don't feel comfortable. You've seen this before. And to just call that play at the biggest moment and to give your team some breathing room in the second half could not have come at a better time. And who knows? You win one game at a time, Justin, but we could look back on that and say that could be one of the biggest plays of the season for Iowa State and keeping their dreams alive.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about like the tenseness of the team and of the program, like at that moment, I think it's just really cool to see like older 50 or 60-year guys stepping up and making plays like that for the team. Because when it gets rough, I mean, those are the guys you got to rely on, and seeing them step up was big time. And shout out to Kyle on finishing that drive with a 50-yard field goal. We don't take those for granted around here either.
I think we do take this for granted, to be honest with you. I mean, he was huge yesterday. Take the points for what you can get him, and he was awesome. And he has been, I don't know. I see some clowns on Twitter sometimes, and I don't understand the comments for him, because he has been lights out this year. And to have a guy who's got a chance, like you think it's going in every time he lines up for a 50. That was a 52-yard field goal on that.
It's like the same thing we talked about last week, how we think Iowa State is going to have a good second half, and how we can come to just expect it, and how we've come to expect some of these things that are some pretty elite levels that's going on at Iowa State right now that I think we just got to appreciate.
Absolutely. All right. We'll take a little brief break before we move into our Utah preview. If you guys are still watching the video, we appreciate you guys tuning in each and every single week. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel at Play the Fight Song. We're on the road to 800 subscribers. We're enjoying it. We're getting there. We appreciate all of you guys who tune into all of our stuff, and we love doing this content. And the college football season just continues to heat up as we move on towards another week in November. We will get to the prediction segment for our Utah preview. That is always partnered by our friends at NoRivals.com. Shop NoRivals.com, the best hats in all of collegiate sports. Iowa State fans, keep requesting our team. Let's get hats by next season. If you guys love rocking different brands like Justin and I, go check them out. Go rock a different, maybe ACC school or G5 school, whatever you guys love to do. If you're a Utah fan and you stumbled on this video, appreciate you being here. Go check out shopnorivals.com, and they got a hat for you guys. So use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping. In our prediction segment, if you guys give us a score prediction between Iowa State and Utah, say Iowa State wins 24-13, you get 2 for 2 there, and you are subscribed to our channel, we will get you guys a hat at shopnorivals.com. All right. Justin, I said it in the beginning. The Big 12 continues to Big 12. Iowa State, still everything on the table at this point. And this game in Salt Lake City feels as big as it did even when we looked at it 2 months ago, even though the opponent in Utah isn't maybe the same team we thought we'd be playing. Arizona State gets a huge win last night in Manhattan and beats Kansas State, which keeps them in the alive for the Big 12 title. Colorado dominates Utah. We'll get into that a little bit. And then BYU loses to Kansas. So Justin, I ask you this. Do you know the tiebreaker scenarios in the Big 12?
I do not, but I hope you do.
I do.
If we went out and Arizona State wins out, well, I guess BYU would have 2 losses. Yeah, I don't know. You're going to have to break some of that down. We're out?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
So, didn't think we'd get here. Arizona State. If Arizona State decides to win out, they beat BYU next week, and then they beat their rival Arizona. That could be a fascinating game at the end of the year, by the way. Arizona State actually holds the tiebreaker over Iowa State. And nobody was talking about that 2 weeks ago, because I don't think anybody thought Arizona State would be sitting here with 2 Big 12 losses in the month of November. However, Justin, Colorado travels to Kansas City this weekend playing a red-hot Jayhawk team. If Colorado loses, Iowa State owns the tiebreaker over Colorado.
That would make me so happy.
So if you guys are rooting for somebody, if you're an Iowa State fan, not only you're rooting for Iowa State to win the football game, you need to be rooting for Kansas this week. You really, at this point, what BYU and Arizona State do next week doesn't really mean anything.
What is our tiebreaker with BYU?
So Iowa State would own, I believe I didn't check that one. I'm pulling up BYU's schedule here. So this is as we're doing this.
Say Kansas wins and Arizona State wins and we win. Would it then be us and Arizona State?
Yes. So if Arizona State wins and Kansas beats Colorado, it would be Arizona State would be the 1 seed. Iowa State would be that would be something I didn't have on my bingo card.
I think Arizona State, they could provide some interesting problems for us, but
yeah,
that's a long ways to go.
It is, but I think it's something to note, and I think it's interesting because I don't think Iowa State fans realize that we do not own the tiebreaker over all of these teams. So you want Colorado to lose no matter what. I mean, realistically, the BYU game doesn't mean anything because if BYU wins, they still have one loss. Mm-hmm. They play Houston, assuming they beat Houston in the last game of the year. Okay, they obviously got one loss. You're not going to get above them. Arizona State wins. Now they have 2 losses, and you don't own the tiebreaker with them. So either way, you're still sitting behind one of those 2 teams.
There is one constant with all these tiebreakers is we need to win. And we have a night game at Utah, and as bad as they are,
4:30.
6:30. Is that
6:30? 6:30 Central Time.
Why is yeah, it'll be dark within the second quarter though. 4:30 in late November is a night game.
Yeah.
You're and right. As I know we're going to touch on that. I know I'm sure you've got a lot to cover on Utah, but that is not going to be an easy game.
Nope, I agree. Let's win the football game and let's talk about the football game. Iowa State, Justin, like you said, goes on the road next Saturday and takes on the Utah Utes, another newcomer in the Big 12. Not the first time Iowa State has played Utah. Utah went to Jack Trice Stadium in 2010. I was at that one, and they blew the doors off us. I think it was like 60-20 or something like that. This is a 6:30 Central kick on Fox. Hopefully we get Tim Brando again. Just kidding. Not a huge fan of him calling games. I know you go to all the games.
Yeah. Is it Fox or Fox Sports 1? I'm sorry.
Nope, Fox. So Rocco said that in his post game yesterday with that crew. He's like, we've won every game with you guys calling the game. So we hope we get you guys again next week. So we'll wait and see there. And this is a Utah team who's now 4-6. They got just dismantled at Colorado yesterday. This is a team who has lost 6 conference games since beating Oklahoma State in early September. I'm sure to Utah fans, they can agree if they're in the comments. That feels like 40 years ago, Justin.
Well, do you remember neither of those teams have won a conference game since then.
That's correct. So it is quite literally incredible. And while Iowa State has dealt with the injury bug this year, I think Utah fans would say that they have no sympathy for us because this team has, frankly, nobody left. Isaac Wilson is their quarterback, Zach Wilson's little brother. As far as I know, he's the last scholarship quarterback on the roster. I believe. The Brandon Rose kid who they trotted out against BYU's out for the season. Obviously, Cam Rising's out for the season. Wilson got benched for this Brandon Rose kid who was okay. And now they're back to Wilson. And Wilson's he's struggled this year, a former 4-star recruit. I think Utah fans obviously were super excited getting him over BYU, but his freshman year just hasn't gone according to plan. And he's a young kid who's just taken lumps along the way. This team offensively, Justin, 104th in scoring offense. They're averaging 22 points a game, 126th nationally in completion percentage among all of their quarterbacks. It's around 52%. Horrible. 98th in yards per game. But if we get into players of the game or players to watch out for, It's Mekhi Bernard, the running back. He's 35th in the country in yards per game. This guy can do a little bit of everything. He's a smaller back. He's quick. He's shifty. Could give Iowa State some issues. But right now, as we're recording this, Justin, on a Sunday night the week before, this feels like the first time in a few weeks where I don't feel scared for this Iowa State defense that they're going to be seeing a ton of really good athletes on the field, if that makes sense. Offensively, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, athlete wise, they shouldn't provide much of an issue for us. But like you said, Bernard's still a really good running back. And I mean, after watching yesterday too, it's just hard to be very confident, at least for me, going into a game like this when you've got to play a good running back. And Wilson hasn't been very good this year either, like we've talked about. But if we play like we did the last 2 weeks and we give him time, that's exactly what a young quarterback needs at home.
Defensively, this team's going to show up, and Iowa State's got a tough road test. Rice-Eccles Stadium, while it hasn't home to be, a tough road test this year, in years past, like, fans show out. Like, this is a tough place to play. They had a really, really good home record going into this year. They lost like one home game.
BYU a run for their money.
Exactly, and they're going to be fired up. Iowa State, we didn't even mention that, Justin. They're 22 in the AP poll, so you're back in the rankings. You got a ranked team coming to your place. This team cares. It's a passionate fan base. It's a really good coached team. Kyle Whittingham has been around the block for now 20 plus years, and so there's no doubt in my mind that this team will still be ready to go. Brent Keithy, their star tight end, blew out his knee last week against BYU. They're looking to Dorian Singer, the wide receiver there, former USC transfer. He's still okay. Like, he's still going to get his 5 or 6 catches. Justin, did you watch the Colorado game more than I did yesterday? What were your takeaways kind of from the Utah side?
I kept turning it off every time Colorado scored because it was making me mad. But I mean, yeah, Utah's defense played pretty well for a while, but
game a shot.
I mean, that's why I kind of made that face when you were saying they got kind of beat pretty bad, because going into the fourth quarter, it was still a pretty competitive game on the road for Utah. Wilson threw a couple of really bad picks, and that was the difference for him. Yeah. If we can't turn Wilson over, I think we're gonna have a lot of problems this week. But it's something that they're prone to do, and I keep harping on it, but I think it's so important. You got to put pressure on him this week. You have to.
Yep, we'll get into all of our keys to the game at the end too, and I think we're kind of in line with where we think Iowa State needs to succeed on Saturday. But I do want to highlight that defense because, the wheels kind of fell off in the fourth quarter, and it's kind of felt like that way all year just because of how bad the offense has been. But this defense continues to show up. They're 30th in scoring defense. They've only forced 13 turnovers this year, but they're 33rd in red zone defense. So this is just kind of a bend, don't break defense. It's a tough defense. Van Fillinger is a defensive end for them. That's really good. He's got 6 sacks on the year. They're not going to turn you over a bunch, especially like maybe Iowa State, if they play the clean style of football we kind of expect them to. But that doesn't mean Iowa State's going to trot out there and score their 30 points a game. I don't think it's going to be that easy as maybe some Iowa State fans expect.
I would not expect that, especially on the road in a tough environment. It's their senior night too. I mean, they haven't won a conference game or they won the one conference game. They haven't won a home conference game yet this year. So this is one I definitely don't expect Utah to just bend over and hand it to us.
What do you think the ovation for Cam Rising is on Saturday?
Seriously, do you think they're going to trot him out?
Why? I mean, why wouldn't they? Like, we're not going to get into that conversation right now, but they're not bringing him back next year. It's not happening. It will not happen.
No comment.
Do you know the point spread on this game?
No, I do not. Did they release it?
They do.
Let me
guess
one. I was going to say 3.5 Iowa State.
Iowa State is a 6-point favorite.
Don't like that.
Good. I expect that number to come down.
And that's been a theme the last couple of weeks. I mean, the UCF, the Texas Tech, and the Kansas game all came in at Iowa State like almost 2 touchdown favorites, except for the Kansas one. But they all plummeted at least 4 points. Would not be surprised if this got down to at least 4 points.
Yeah, it almost feels like a 3 and a hook. That's exactly where I thought this was going to be, a field goal and a hook. would be, I thought, the perfect line, but
maybe the public is so far off on Utah. That's where they had to put it. Because, I mean,
right.
we may think that's like an exact, like that's where the game's going to be. No, that's where Vegas is putting the line to try to get people to bet on it. And I think Utah has just struggled so much that they're having a hard time getting action on Utah. So I think that's more indicative of the line and not that Iowa State is a touchdown better than these guys at their place.
Absolutely. So let's get into that. Let's make our predictions, our keys to the game. As always, it's partnered by our friends at No Rivals. Give us a score prediction below. Say who is going to win. Justin, my keys to the game, I think Iowa State needs to convert offensively in the red zone. I think you're only going to get 3 of them, 3 or 4 trips, and you got to get points. You got to get touchdowns. And I think that's going to be huge because this is still a really good red zone defense. And if you can't convert points in the red zone, you're going to find yourself on the road in some difficult situations. Take your points, make your field goals. Kyle has been really good. The dry Utah air on turf, I think he's going to have success kicking the football. And then the second one for me, I think, I guess it first comes with stopping the run, but I didn't put that down. I just said, like, we gotta get up enough to force Wilson to throw 30 plus times. I think if you make him throw 30 plus times, you're going to have a lot of success. Comes with what you just said, Justin, turnovers. If you can throw him 30 plus times, there's no reason you shouldn't at least get 1 or 2 picks out of that. Those are my keys to the games.
Yeah, I expect our secondary to play pretty well like they usually do. It's just, and I think Utah is going to be able to run the ball with some level of success as well. I mean, the way Iowa State's been playing this year and then like what Utah's used to, there's really no reason for me to say they're not going to be able to run the ball. So I know I've touched on it before, but I think just keeping Wilson uncomfortable. If you let him start to get off to a rhythm early in the game, start to let him have time in the pocket and find open receivers, it could be a problem for us. But he's a young quarterback who's been really prone to turnovers. And if they can speed him up a little bit, I think this Iowa State defense could definitely take advantage of that.
I really need to know that J.R. Singleton health status. I need it, man. I need it. And that being said, prediction time. If I know what I'm getting health wise out of the defense, if it's similar to last week, I like Iowa State in the spot, and I like it ugly. I go like they let's say they push here. I like 20 to 14. I really don't think Iowa State's going to have a ton of success offensively unless it's something like Colorado where points just kind of come at a bunch in the fourth quarter. The defense is kind of, for Utah, kind of gets worn down. They get sick of this offense just being unsuccessful. And maybe that way Iowa State can have success. But like you said, senior night game, Rice Eccles Stadium, just think it's going to be a grinder. I don't think Iowa State's going to get anything easy on Saturday.
If I told you that Iowa State tied the turnover battle, do you think we'd still win the game? Or do you think we got to win the turnover battle?
That depends. Is it 0-0 or is it like 2-2?
We'll say 1-1.
1-1.
Say we only force 1 pick and then Rocco throws a pick, which I think is very possible because we haven't shown a ton of turnovers this year on defense. I mean, we've done well, but it's not something we can count on every time. Those are kind of up in the air every game. And I mean, Rocco didn't throw a pick yesterday, but he probably should have. Threw it right off the middle linebacker's hands on one of the plays. It would not surprise me at all if he did throw 1 pick this weekend, which just kind of worries me a little bit.
It's like time and place. If that turnover is a pick 6, no, don't like that. But maybe if it's something like yesterday where you just have one of those kind of bang fumbles out of your running back at midfield. I mean, turnovers suck and you don't ever want them, but like that was kind of, again, whatever. Cincinnati got the ball at the 50 and it was like, okay, now go put a drive together. Same thing for Utah. I think if we give them the ball back in that situation, it's like, okay, whatever. On the flip side, what do we do with the turnover that we get? I said it. I think we said that last week, Justin. Like they got 1 turnover yesterday. Finally, it's been a couple weeks and they made something out of it. So,
and I think that's why they went for it on that 4th down too, because that's huge. If you don't get points out of a turnover, I mean, it's a backbreaker for your defense.
Absolutely. So that's what I'll leave that off of. They can tie the turnover battle, but Iowa State's got to execute more than Utah. Justin, your score prediction before we get out of here.
Yeah, it's kind of tough for me to predict how I don't know. I've been betting. I told myself I wouldn't bet on like the Iowa State spreads very much, but I have been the last couple of weeks and it hasn't been going well. But I will say Iowa State 21, Utah 17 in this one. I just think a lot of the good signs, as cautious as I am, I think a lot of the good signs that Iowa State showed yesterday are repeatable aspects of the game for us, with getting the tight ends involved, being strong across the middle. Even if we can't run the ball very effectively, I think our offense can still be versatile enough to have success. And ultimately, I think our defense is just too good to be taken advantage of by
Yep.
Isaac Wilson. But then again, if for some reason Big Dom is out and we don't got Singleton, that could make it a lot more interesting.
Absolutely. I think Iowa State's schedule continues to do itself some favors this year. Iowa State's been lucky in the schedule department. I think you're getting this Utah team just at a really banged up time. I'd rather have them now than when they went to Stillwater in September or something like that. And I'm glad we have this one before K-State. I just after last week, I don't want to play K-State. They respond really well after a loss, and I'm glad there's a week before this K-State game. And then, yeah, like we said, Justin, we take everything one at a time, and could be setting up a really, really big game in Jack Trice Stadium, probably a night game for
Yep.
senior day against Kansas State.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Avery Johnson on the road. That guy's a pumpkin, but that was mean. I just don't. Yeah, that was
He's
mean.
not.
I
Not a
would
tough
like.
year.
I want to see us repeat the strengths that we showed yesterday in that Cincinnati game. I want to see us repeat this weekend. I think Cincinnati across the board is probably a better team than Utah right now, but in this environment and where these two teams are at on Utah's senior night, I think they're going to provide a lot of similar challenges to Iowa State. And I just want to see us do it 2 weeks in a row to kind of give myself more comfort and give the guys a little more confidence.
100%. I think that's a good way to put this out. Really excited to see what the opportunity is for Iowa State on Saturday. Season's still in the balance. Everything's still to play for. And Justin, you have a chance to win 9 games for the first time in Iowa State's regular season history. So, yep,
They didn't go 9-3 in 2001.
Nope, they went 8-3. I think they played 11 games that year.
Ew.
I believe. Somebody can fact check me if they want, but I'm almost certain. Justin, you like to call me the fact check guy.
Yeah.
So this is the first time in Iowa State's history that you can win 9 regular season games. Huge historical opportunity. Just when you can count this team out, this team continues to respond. But win or lose, of course, Justin and I will be back here again next week to cover you with your Iowa State coverage. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Before you head out of here, please like the video, subscribe to our channel. We're trying to grow this thing to our Iowa State friends and all of the communities, as well as just college football enjoyers that we all love around here. We do our live Wednesday episodes that play the fight song, as well as some other game breakdowns and cover some other teams in college football as well. Score prediction at the bottom, shopnorivals.com. Use the code PTFS at checkout. That is Justin. My name is Jake. We will be back next week to cover Farmageddon and recap, hopefully, a win for Iowa State in Salt Lake City. Appreciate you guys once again. As always, how I send us out. Go Cyclones.